Hello. Here we are for our webinar for 3 keys to getting A-plus contracts and keeping those A-plus contracts. If you're in business as a music therapy owner, of course, this is what you want to do because we want to get those contracts that run well and allow us to do our best work with the clients that we want to serve. So we want the business side of things to be as smooth and perfect and beautiful as possible. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. I'm glad you're all here. For those of you who are on live, if you want to type in the chat box just where you're from, we can see where we're chiming in from. I know we've got some folks from Ohio. I'm coming from Kansas City. Allison's from Connecticut. Hello. Who else is here? Brenda from Ohio. Michigan, yay. Lori, do you have a question? Just raise your hand. Lori from Vancouver, yay, hello. Kathy from Ohio, great. Jennifer from Oklahoma, wonderful. Lauren from Ohio, okay. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to the folks who are going to be watching this as a recording later. I know it's the middle of the day on a Friday, and so some of us are probably out working with clients right now, and so that's a good place to be. So we're gathering today for this webinar to talk about contract work as music therapists, and so we're really going to be focusing in on the business-to-business side of music therapy business. So when we build relationships with other businesses instead of working with private clients directly. So that's where our focus is going to be on this call today. Now, we are wrapping up a week-long contract checkup challenge, and I know a lot of the people who are on the call right now have been participating in that challenge, and so I'll be referring back to some of that stuff, but you don't need to have participated in that to benefit from this webinar. However, if you don't want to go back and complete the challenge, all the video steps and everything are still there, and you can still complete the challenge on your own time. That group's going to be up for another week or two. So to sign up, if you weren't in the challenge, you can go to soundscapingsource.com/challenge and get into that Facebook group so you can do those challenge steps that we might be referring to here. We also will have a drawing at the end of this webinar for somebody who's going to get a free spot in Rock That Contract. So Rock That Contract is my group coaching program for music therapists who music therapy business owners who are working on contracts. And the doors are open for that right now. We have a group cohort a couple times a year. And so this is our fall group cohort, the last one for the year. So some lucky person is going to get the free spot in that group. And so I'm excited to get to do that at the end of this as well. So we're going to spend about 40 minutes or so going over some of the content that I prepared for you. And then we're going to have time to do a question and answer period as well. So if you're on the call live, if you have any questions that come up while we're going over some of the presentation that I have for you, or if you have anything about your own business that you want to talk about a little bit on this call, just be ready for that towards the end of the hour, and we'll have time to do that. I will stay on the line until we've answered everybody's questions. I can stay on the line till about 2:15 or so if we have those kinds of questions to address. Otherwise, you may use the chat box, those of you who are on live, and I will read from the chat box to make sure that the people who are watching the recording will know what's going on in there too. Cool. All right, and for those of you joining late, if you want to have your video on, you're welcome to, but keep your audio muted just so that we can get a clean recording. All right, so I'm going to turn on my slides here. Here we are. 3 keys to getting and keeping A-plus contracts. So I have been a music therapist for 14 years, and I've been self-employed this entire time. When I came out of my internship, I wanted to move back to Wichita, Kansas. That's where my family was, and there weren't any music therapy jobs there. So I had to create my own thing if I wanted to do music therapy. So I was an accidental entrepreneur. that happens to a lot of us, a lot of us who want to do music therapy in a particular place. And the way that we can do that is by doing music therapy or by starting our own business. Now, I moved to Kansas City eventually and have been here about 10 years. And by the time I moved here, there were other jobs available. Job openings came up on occasion, including a couple that would have been perfect for me when I had first started out as a music therapist. Full-time hospice position, full-time mental health position. And for a while, every time one of those came up, I would look at it and think, maybe I should apply for this. And then I wouldn't. And keep going with my business. And now I don't even look at those job postings anymore, except just to be aware of what the jobs are around here, because I love being a business owner. I love being an entrepreneur. I love being able to do my own thing and create new programs and take music therapy places that it hasn't been before. So I think this work of being in private practice or being a business owner is really exciting. So I love it now. I love it now. Hang on just a second. My screen is doing weird things. Okay. So whether you're an accidental entrepreneur or you are super excited to dig in and build your business, maybe you've been doing something else and now you're building a business, or maybe you've been in business for a while and you're ready to take it to the next step or the next level. That's why we're here today, because we can do a lot as business owners to bring music therapy to people. Part of the reason that I do webinars like this and that I have programs for other music therapists is that we don't learn a lot of this stuff in school. It's not part of our academic curriculum. And frankly, they don't have time to fit this into the curriculum. So we have to learn it eventually. You don't know what you don't know. I've learned a lot by trial and error over the years, by finding mentors and learning from them. And so I want to share what I've learned with you, maybe help you avoid some of the mistakes I've made and take a more direct path to a successful business than it took for me. So that's part of why we're doing this today too. So today, as I mentioned before, we're focusing on getting and keeping contracts. Earlier this week, when we were doing this contract checkup challenge, we talked about this idea of an A+ client, a client that matches your values. That's the kind of client contract organization that you want to serve. And that also works well with you on the business side, that pays you your rate, that pays you on time, that's easy to communicate with, that has a good reputation in the community, that helps you to make other connections, that provides the staff support you need. All of those things to help us have all the resources we need to be able to provide the best services to our clients, which is really what we're all about as music therapists. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to do an overview of the 3 big steps to getting and building contracts. I've talked about this in other webinars before, so if you've been on some of my other webinars, some of this will be review. These are the big steps that we cover in Rock That Contract as well in a lot more depth, but we're just going to give an overview today of the 3 big steps in getting a contract and maintaining a contract. We're also going to share some golden nuggets along the way. For example, how to breach the wall of overwhelm. Maybe you haven't encountered a wall of overwhelm yet, but I know several people in the Facebook group this week have been experiencing overwhelming feelings. I'm going to give you my number 1 tip for getting emails and phone calls returned. And I'm going to tell you how to keep your contracts at an A+ level even when their staff changes. Okay. All right. So first step is to identify the right organization to work with. In the contract checkup challenge earlier this week, we started by focusing on vision and values. So your personal values and then the vision that you have for your business or the priorities that your business has. They usually line up pretty closely for a while until your business gets to a certain size. They might split a little bit. But it's really important that when you start before you start putting a lot of effort into marketing and sales and meeting people and building your network and that kind of thing, you need to know what organizations you want to work with and what organizations you don't want to work with. I've met a lot of music therapy business owners who have taken the first opportunity that's come to them, or maybe taken on an opportunity that was right there in front of them, but then it wasn't a good fit necessarily for one reason or another. for example, my business, we focus on elder care. My strengths and my passion are with older adults and people with memory loss and hospice, end of life care. So when I had an opportunity pretty early in my business to do music therapy in adolescent residential treatment center, I took the contract, I set it up, and I did a staff and service, and I did all the things, set up my documentation, put a lot of time into session planning and everything. But it was so draining for me to do that work that I got to the point pretty quickly that I dreaded going to do those sessions, and I dreaded planning for those sessions. And it was a little bit of a relief when the organization, the grant funding ran out and they couldn't continue the program. It was kind of a relief that I was able to step away from that. Now, another dozen years down the road, I know that that was not a good fit for me and that I shouldn't have put a lot of time and effort into building that contract. I should have put more of my effort into finding the clients that were right for my company. Okay. So here's some keys to identifying the right organization. You need to get clear on your values and your priorities for yourself and for your business. You also need to understand the marketplace. Let's say your passion is working in corrections. It may be difficult to get a lot of contracts in corrections if you're living in a small town in the middle of the state and the nearest federal prison facility is hours away, right? So you need to know what organizations in your area are potential customers, the size of your potential market. Another example is in some states, there is a certificate of need for hospices. So there might only be 2 or 3 hospices within a geographical area. And if 2 of those have music therapists, that leaves 1 hospice, right? You're going to need more than 1 prospect if you're going to be able to build your business. So that market would be too small. You'd have to expand your vision a little bit. On the other hand, if you're thinking in terms of, well, I can serve any organization that would benefit from music therapy, that's probably way too many organizations for you to serve. So you have to figure out what your marketplace looks like to see how realistic your vision is for the marketplace that you're in. It's also really important that you focus your attention. It is not easy, maybe nearly impossible, to market to several different sectors of the healthcare marketplace at the same time, or several different demographics at the same time. People tend to respond best when they know that you're specialized in one way or another, or that your communication is targeted directly towards them. So it's okay to serve multiple different populations, or to serve different areas of your region and that kind of thing. But you need to focus your attention a little bit more narrower with the effort that you put into marketing and sales and that kind of thing. So if you're throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, you're probably not going to end up with the A+ clients that you want. You might get 1 or 2, and you might get a couple of C- clients. And you're probably going to be missing out on a lot of opportunity for some A+ clients that are a little bit harder to reach initially. So you need to focus your attention in on the right organizations for you. Now, it's also important that you do some research. Market research is something that, again, we didn't learn it in school, but there are some ways to go about market research that make a lot of sense for music therapists. There are also ways to do market research that you might hear from business people in the community that don't make a lot of sense for music therapists. So this is something that we talk about a lot in Rock That Contract is how to do the research to know which organizations are the best prospects for you and which are the ones that you should really be spending your time on. Okay, so let's talk about that wall of overwhelm. I'm curious see if I can get my chat box to pop up here. I'm gonna back out here for a second. Maybe not. Chat. Okay, so I'm curious to hear from everybody on the chat, how many of you have experienced this wall of overwhelm? Has anybody ever experienced that before? What does that feel like? I can say that I encounter the wall of overwhelm over and over and over again as an entrepreneur. I think it's, at one time I thought maybe I would be able to get over it and just be fine from then on. But now I know that it's going to continue, right? The challenges are going to continue. So those of you who are live, you can just put, yeah. So Lori says every day, like how often do you get overwhelmed by all that you need to do to find the right organizations and target them and market to them and that kind of thing? Emily says, oh yes. Oh yes. So overwhelming feelings can be a big part of the process. Okay, Kathy says no overwhelm here, not enough to do. That can also be an uncomfortable feeling too. Like, I know I should be doing something, but I don't know what. That can be part of it. And then let's see, many of us were thrust into this quickly. It can be very overwhelming. Yeah. So I think it can get overwhelming when you have too many opportunities. It can be overwhelming when you don't have enough opportunities and your checkbook is getting low and you wonder how the heck am I going to make this work? It can be overwhelming when you get a new contract and you're trying to make everything work, right? You're trying to get to know the clients, you're trying to get to know your customers, people who pay your bills, you're trying to build the communication channels, all that kind of thing. And you're starting from scratch and creating a lot of things from scratch and starting a lot of things new. And it's really easy to focus on the wrong things, I think. So let's see, I have another comment here. I think that it ebbs and flows. Sometimes everything feels good, and then the overwhelm will all come when everyone needs things at once. Yeah, so that can come too. So there can be like seasonal things that happen where everything can happen all at once. So here's how I handle the wall of overwhelm. First of all, I have to acknowledge that it's going to be there. Like there are going to be uncomfortable feelings from time to time in business. So for me and for a lot of people on this chat, it looks like overwhelm is one of those uncomfortable feelings. Sometimes it can be a fear or an anxiety or a worry about business. The first thing I do is just acknowledge those feelings as real and valid, and that they're just feelings and they can't hurt me, right? It's big. We do this with our clients, right? They're feelings, they're there, but feelings can't hurt us. It's how we respond to those feelings. And then I break out a notebook, or I use a software called Asana for project management, and then I break things down into very clear steps on this is what I need to meet my goal. So I was just talking with somebody yesterday, I think, or the day before, about how many people do I need to talk to in order to get the contract that I want. Well, if you need 5 contracts to fill out your schedule, then you probably need to have, maybe 10 or 15 meetings. If you need to have 10 or 15 meetings, then that means maybe you need to talk to 25 or 30 people to get those meetings scheduled. Well, sending 30 emails doesn't feel as big to me as getting 5 new contracts, right? So breaking it down and backing up step by step to, well, the first thing I have to do is get their email address. That feels much less overwhelming. So I encourage to get over that wall of overwhelm. First of all, acknowledge the feelings as valid, and you're not alone. We've all been there. Vent if you need to, vent your feelings. And then break down what you need to do to get to your next target or your next goal. So start with the end in mind, and then back up until you have a manageable step that you can take right now. Okay? So that's how we get over overwhelm. Now, Emily said, I get overwhelmed with a balance of serving the client and the company bottom line. Yeah. So that is a challenge too, finding that balance between the business hat that we wear and the clinical hat that we wear. Yeah, I acknowledge that challenge too, Emily, and I hear it. Okay. So that's the piece about choosing your ideal clients or knowing which opportunities you want to go after. It's really important to start your focus there, not to try to market to 200 organizations but maybe 10 this week, or 10 this month, depending on where your business is and what your goals are and that kind of thing. Once you've identified those target organizations, the next thing you need to do is to start building relationships with the people there that are going to make a decision about whether to hire you or not. And you're going to work with them, collaborate with them to build a program that's appropriate for their organization. So building relationships is the second big step in getting contracts, A+ contracts in your business. So first thing you got to do is you got to get in touch with stakeholders and decision makers. So decision makers are the people who sign the contract, right? Who say, yes, you may have $500 a month to provide services here. And then the stakeholders are the people who can get to the decision maker if you're not able to get there on your own. They're the people who can help make connections and advocate for music therapy internally. So you need to identify who those folks are and how to get to them. Now that's the big question, is how. How do you get to those folks? I'm not going to go into too much depth. This is something we cover in a lot of depth in Rock That Contract, and we'll talk a lot more in the group calls. Some of you have already signed up for the program, so we'll talk about that a lot more in those calls. But some of the big ways that you can get in contact with those, some of the ways you can get in contact with those stakeholders and decision makers, networking and cold outreach are the main steps that I use to find those people. So finding people in your network to help make an introduction, or identifying, or just simply reaching out to the organization, getting contact information, and then reaching out cold, either in person, by the phone, or by email, LinkedIn, different ways to reach out cold. The goal of networking and cold outreach is to get to a sales conversation. A mistake that I see people make frequently is trying to sell music therapy on a brochure, or trying to sell music therapy in an email or on a phone call, or on a voicemail even. And I know that I've done that a lot in the past. And sometimes I catch myself still doing that now, trying to make a sale on a voicemail, which with the service that we offer is not going to be successful very often. That's because a lot of people don't understand music therapy. They don't know why we charge more than entertainers, why we want to be paid for our work sometimes, why we're not volunteering. And so we have to have that sales conversation where we can build the value of our services, own our authority and our expertise as music therapists, as allied healthcare professionals, so that when we give them, when we make the offer and say, you can have me provide services, or you can have us provide services for this investment, that they're ready to hear that number and to say yes to that, okay? So it's crucial that you use marketing to get to a sales conversation. Now, another thing you have to figure out how to do is how to handle objections while maintaining your integrity. So objections are when you are talking about your program and you're making an offer, and the objections are going to be things like, well, we can't afford you weekly, so can we have you every other month? Or can you just teach our staff how to do this? Or, we don't want to pay for documentation time. Like, well, how do you handle those objections without degrading our field or without compromising the quality of your services? That's something you have to figure out according to the people that you're reaching out to, that you really need to practice, okay? So I encourage you actually to practice handling objections with another person, like have a role play situation where they're playing somebody who says, oh, it's too expensive, or well, we don't have time, or things like that, and answer those questions in a way that can help to save a sale or to get to a sale. That makes sense. Again, this is something we cover a lot more depth in Rock That Contract. Okay, but in this topic of building relationships, marketing, leading to a sales conversation, sales relationship, my number one tip for getting your calls and emails returned, this is one of my very favorite things to teach. I learned this from another business coach. It's called the RE technique. RE: technique. And what you do is you send an email to somebody reaching out cold, or maybe it doesn't even have to be reaching out cold. It could be any email. And you sent them an email and said, here's what we discussed, or here's what we'd like to do, or here's a couple dates when we can meet, and you don't hear back from them, right? They just don't respond. Well, my technique is to hit reply to that email. So what happens is the subject line is RE: re, and in the subject line that you had originally. That tends to catch people's eye, because if it's an ongoing conversation, then they want to participate in that conversation. So I hit reply, and then I say, hi, Jerry, did you catch the email below? And then I repeat whatever the call to action was, like, let's get a date on the calendar to talk about music therapy. And then Rochelle, real brief, something that they can read in line at the post office, right, on their phone. And I would say, I should count sometime, but I would say probably 9 times out of 10 that I'll get a reply from that. And it might not be the reply I want. Like sometimes after I have a sales conversation and they're going to talk about it and make a decision, and then I'll email them back and not hear, and then I'll email them back, and then they reply and say, at this time we don't want to do music therapy or whatever. So it might not be the response I want, but having a response is better than being in a holding pattern where you're wondering what they're thinking and you're wondering if they're going to call you back, or when you're stewing over the fact that they're so unprofessional and not returning their emails, So that is the technique that I recommend for getting your calls and emails returned. Now, if you do more phone calling, I do a lot more email because it's less obtrusive. People can deal with email on their own time rather than calling and having to, take them out of whatever they were working on to take your phone call. But if you do make phone calls, maybe you don't have their email address, or sometimes like I might call and ask for somebody and they're not available. And so then I will leave a voicemail and call back and get their email address. So when I leave a voicemail, I also email them and say, I just left a voicemail to following up on blah, 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 blah. And then that way they can choose which way to interact with you, which for busy professionals is good, that you can give them a couple of options for getting in touch with you. Okay? Make sense? You like that? Okay. All right, so the first step is determining who your ideal clients are and understanding your marketplace. Second step is the sales and marketing piece. That's building those relationships and moving from curiosity to, yes, we want this, to signing on the dotted line, okay? So the third piece for successfully getting and maintaining A+ contracts is defining your program. So this is the part where we start doing the work with the clients, and it's really important that we do great work with the clients, of course, because that is always going to be the best way to keep your programs going. We also have to be conscious of the business side as well. Like, you can't take your business hat off once you get the contract. You have to continue thinking like a business owner, okay? So for this third piece, we're going to talk about defining your program, how you make sure things are clear about how your service is going to be delivered, and then follow up and help people to understand that as you go along. So some of defining your program does happen before the sales conversation. Depending on what you do, you might have some kind of standard package or standard offering. We have gotten to the point at Soundscaping Source where we have a pretty standard offering in memory care, because we have, I don't know how many, I probably worked with 30 different memory care communities over the years. So we know what tends to work in memory care communities. And so we have it all written out very clear, so that when we have the sales conversation, we can say, this is what we offer. And then we can make modifications if they need that. You need to know what to include in your contract, what to have in your agreement. Yes, you do need to have one. Talk about that more in a second. Defining your program also involves knowing what policies you should have and how to enforce them. So if you have a policy that they pay in 30 days and they're not paying in 30 days and they're not paying and they're not paying, how are you going to get them to do that? Well, maybe you need to have a late fee implemented, right? Or maybe you need to figure out billing earlier, or maybe you need to drop the contract. Another policy that you might need to have is when to cancel because of inclement weather. This becomes especially important once you have other people serving your contracts. When can we cancel a session? When do we still go? Same thing with being sick. Like, do you reschedule when you're sick? How easy is it to reschedule? That kind of thing. You need to think about some of that stuff in advance and define that up front when you have the control, rather than reacting in the moment when something happens. It's better to think it through in advance. Defining your program is also about developing procedures and protocols. So your documentation system is one that we tend to think of because that's a very familiar system for us as music therapists. But you might also need to think about things like scheduling protocols, rescheduling, like if somebody is normally on Thursdays, but this month they want to be on a Tuesday, like how do you manage that? You might want to develop some procedures or protocols for marketing. Like how often are you going to send out a mailing, or how often are you going to send thank you cards to your current clients, or how often are you going to, like, what kind of advertising are you going to get, that kind of thing. So developing procedures and protocols, we talk about more in the defining your program piece and Rock That Contract too. And then continuing to market to your customers. This was something it took me a long time to learn. Marketing, you market to potential customers, you market to the client, the community at large, but then you also need to think about marketing to your customers so that you continue to tell them how awesome you are and continue to reinforce for them why your service is so valuable and why they want to work with you. So most recently for me, I had this article. I was interviewed for an article in a local business magazine, and article came out, very nice article. I had to remember to share that with our current clients to say, look at us. We have this article in this magazine, and thank you for being our customer and letting us provide this program in your community. That's not something that is natural for me to just be like, hey, look at this wonderful thing I've done. So I had to think about that and understand that by doing that, I'm strengthening those contracts, those relationships, so that I'll be able to serve those clients longer into the future. So ultimately it's benefiting my clients, right? So continuing to market to your customers is something important too in that third piece. All right, so the nugget here, how to keep your contracts at an A+ level even when staff changes. The answer to that, my friends, is to have a contract, okay? To have a written agreement. It is important for you to have a written agreement in place for your services. It can be a very simple agreement. It can be an agreement that's more complex and full of legalese and all that kind of thing, but you have to have a written agreement. And one of the big reasons why is because when that activity director moves on to a new position, or when the executive director retires, or when the corporation gets bought out by a bigger corporation and now you have new management team somewhere else, you need to have that written agreement so that they'll keep paying your rates and that they'll keep sticking to the standards that you've set up. So things like in our contracts, we specify how much we get paid, how frequent their sessions have to be for the rate that we're asking for, the maximum number of people to be in that group. Those things all need to be in there so that your contracts stay at that A+ level. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a group of 35 people, and they want to reduce it to every other month and still get that nice, sweet $50 a session rate. And you are not going to want that to happen. That will no longer be an A+ client. So that is something that you are definitely going to want to make sure you do, is to have that contract in place. Now, I know the next question is, well, where do I get a contract? We do have a sample contract inside of Rock That Contract, the coaching program I'm going to tell you about. There's a template in there that you can use and take it to your take it to your lawyer to have them review it to make sure that it fits your needs in your area, okay? So here's a great question from Jennifer Voss. How do you encourage a written agreement when the client says, don't worry, you don't need one? Well, I don't present it as an option. I say, great, we're setting up services. I'm going to send you my agreement, and here's the agreement you need to sign, that kind of thing. And I don't say, I'll get you a contract. And no, you just have to, it's kind of a matter of how you present it. If they push back, then I'll say, well, we're a therapist, and so my insurance provider insists that we have one, which is true. Professional liability provider wants you to have contracts in place, okay? You can also say, my lawyer says I need to have it, which is true. My coaching clients, I tell them that they can tell people that their coach tells them that they need it, or their business advisor tells them they need it. This is standard business practice, okay, to have a written agreement. It's standard, and we are therapists. Now, it might not be standard for entertainers, but any other vendor, they're going to have a written agreement with them. Now, you do not have to have your contract lock them into anything in long term. In fact, ours doesn't. The sample contract in Rock That Contract doesn't either. It doesn't say they have to agree to a year or 5 years of music therapy, but it does spell out the legal relationship between your company and their company, and your rates and your insurance coverage, all kinds of things like that. It protects them and it protects you. It's standard business practice, okay? So I know for me, part of the trouble in asking for contracts was in my approach, in my mindset. So that's something to work on, to be able to present that in a really assertive and matter-of-fact way. Does that make sense? You can reply if you want. Okay, yes, good, thank you. Do you annually have your contract signed again? I tend to have it written that it will be ongoing and automatically renew annually. What do you think of this? Yeah, that's how mine is written. So that sample contract and Rock That Contract is written that way, to renew automatically on January 1st. We have a couple of places that aren't able to sign automatically renewing contracts. And so for those, I have to mark it in my calendar and have them sign it. But that's their request, not mine. Okay. Yeah. And it's also good to have a line in there that says our rates will be reviewed annually prior to contract renewal. That gives you wiggle room to just inform them of rate increases rather than having to go back and negotiate for one. So that's also in our sample contract too. Yeah, I learned that from Barb Royer. She's my internship director. Okay, cool. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. You gotta have contracts, gotta have your agreements in place. Otherwise, you're giving up a lot of control. All right. So that gives you the broad overview of how to get those A+ contracts into your business and how to keep those A+ contracts. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Rock That Contract, which is our group coaching program that's open now. And after that, I'll tell you about this program, but then we're going to have time for some Q&A, as well as the drawing for the free spots. So if you have questions that you're thinking of, you can go ahead and type them into the chat and we can talk about them when we get there. Okay, so Rock That Contract. I've had about 30 some music therapists come through this program now. In this, we are going to dig much deeper into those 3 main steps that we've looked over today. So defining your ideal client, building relationships through marketing and sales, and then defining your program and making it successful in the long term. We're going to go much deeper into all of that. The way that we deliver this course is through online videos and worksheets or assignments that go along with it. It's in a member area on the website. It's an online course, and so you can work through this on your own time. But in addition to the online course, done for you materials. So there's a lot of that, like I mentioned, the contract sample, there's a lot of marketing samples and things like that too that's in the website. The other thing, the really big thing and important thing, is that there's group and private coaching calls to help you with putting this stuff into action. So I feel really strongly about needing to have that group coaching and private coaching time, because it's one thing to look at a video or a book or a course that says this is how you build a business. And it's another thing to start doing the work, because you're going to hit roadblocks, you're going to get discouraged, you're going to have victories too that you want to share with people, and you're going to come up with questions or new ideas and wonder whether or not you should put your time and your effort into implementing those. So that's what we use the group and private coaching calls for, is to help you start implementing this stuff and to start troubleshooting some of the things that you run into as you are putting these new skills into work, or as you're revisiting skills that you've already had, as if you put them into work, and maybe figuring out how to untangle a problem you didn't know how to untangle before. So with Rock That Contract, you get the video training, the online worksheets, the done-for-you material, so you don't have to start from scratch, 3 group calls and 1 private call with me. And with all of that, you get, depending on how long our calls are, you get around 16 CMTEs as well. So it's a way for you to learn, to develop your business skills, and to grow your business all at the same time. So here's what some other people have said about our program. This is from Katie Corbett, who is the owner of Singing Heart. She said, after completing Rock That Contract program, I have an entirely new level of confidence when meeting with, calling, and emailing potential leads. I also have the resources I need, contracts, assessments, charting, and marketing ready to go, which has saved me so much time and research. This course has given me a leap in my business and professional skills. So that's really what I want you to have too, is not to have to learn as much by trial and error as I did, but to save a few steps, save some time, and grow your business faster, and to feel really confident and really good while you do it. So Rock That Contract also includes some bonuses. We have music therapy business owner interviews with Kat Fulton, who founded Sound Health Music and Music Therapy Ed, and Jonna Maloney Jeffcoat, who founded Infinity Music Therapy. So the interviews with them can help to give you some insight into other businesses besides mine. So between the 3 of us business owners, you get a really well-rounded perspective on what different music therapy businesses can look like with the contracts that we have. Another bonus is that you get 2 months membership to MT Insider, which is a membership program for music therapists. We have a lot of downloadable resources related to business, but also a lot related to elder care and working with adults. So that's an extra bonus for you if you work with those populations. We have a supportive Facebook group, and then I also do office hours twice a month for MT Insiders, which opens up more opportunities for you to get some private coaching. So if you do Rock That Contract, you can have the 3 group calls, the 1 private call, and then you'll have 4 opportunities to call in during office hours. So that will give you a ton of support as you're implementing all of this stuff as we go along. Now, all of that together, the videos, the trainings, the worksheets, the done-for-you materials, the bonus interviews, the 2 months in MT Insider, which is a $200 value by itself, all of that you get for $497, or you can split it up into payments. The details are at rockthatcontract.com. And because I like to reward decisive action and to make your decision a little bit easier for getting off the fence and jumping into Rock That Contract, I'm going to have a decisive action bonus. If you join by Sunday, then you get this bonus. It's a marketing material review. And what this is you send me a digital file of your flyer, your brochure, your website, and I'll make a video for you walking through that marketing piece, reviewing it, and giving you some helpful thoughts on your copy, on your graphic design, how things are laid out to help you make your marketing piece more effective. Okay, it's always helpful to have another set of eyes And I've taken a lot of trainings and done a lot of work personally on improving my copywriting skills. So I would like to help you improve your marketing materials. If that's attractive to you, join by Sunday and you'll get that bonus. It's a $200 value and you will just get that added in with the course. So it's, again, a really great deal. I want to make your decision really easy for you. And as I mentioned before, CMTEs, of course, all of this, all the details for this are at rockthatcontract.com. Of course, I can answer questions about this for people who are live on the call right now, or you can feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions that you have. We can set up a time to chat. I want you to feel completely comfortable making the decision to make this investment in your business, in your education, your business education as a music therapist. And so I want to give you all the information you need, answer all the questions you have to know that this is going to be a good investment for you. As I've said, we've had over 30 music therapists who've been through this program, and a lot of people who've experienced success, not just because of this course, obviously, because they're rock stars already, but have gotten a lot out of this. And so, and you can see more of their feedback on that website as well. Yes. Okay. So the doors are open just until next week, Thursday, I think is the last day to join. And then we won't have another group cohort this year. And so you need to join by Sunday to get that decisive action bonus. Or if you still have questions, need to think about it in a few more days, you can join by next Thursday. Otherwise, the doors are going to close. Oh, and we also, I have to say that we are limited on space. We're already filling up. And so if you know you want to do this program, you should get in as soon as you can so that there's a spot for you. Okay? That's what I have to say about Rock That Contract, and I'm happy to answer more questions. Let's see, got a chat box here. Okay, cool. All right, so we have a couple of Q&A questions to answer. Oh, look at this, I got more. The size of back, oh, yep, we did all that. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm actually going to leave that screen up so that you guys can see it and answer Emily's question here. Okay, Emily says, question about focusing your attention. If I do focus on multiple populations, should I have separate marketing? For example, main area focus is people with different abilities. My rack card shows that. Those time slots are narrow, after school hours. We want to fill some mornings and early afternoons with older adults. Should we have an entirely separate rack card? Yeah, I mean, you need to have some different marketing materials for different population groups. And I know that your business is a little bit more mature, right? So you have somebody working for you, I think. And so that yours is a little bit more mature business. So if you're brand new, you don't want to try to make 12 different marketing pieces. You don't need to spend your time on that. You need to spend your time on relationships. But for you, Emily, yes, you need to have a rack card or a flyer or something that's specifically for older adults. And in terms of focusing your attention, you only have so much time to spend on marketing. You only have so much energy and resources to put towards marketing strategy and marketing strategy implementation. So you need to figure out what your time and resources are and how you're going to get the most bang for your buck, essentially. So if you're really needing to fill up some of those morning, daytime slots, then probably your marketing plan right now really needs to focus on targeting those populations. So that's where I would think about the focusing piece, is how can you focus your efforts towards the populations that you really are wanting to target right now. And yes, JC, I see your questions too. I'm going to get there. Emily says, another question, what if they don't respond to your follow-up, or they say they'll get back to you but don't, or string you along? How frequently or how long do you reach out before deciding that facility isn't going to work out? Okay, there's two answers to this. I heard another business coach say she had worked with doing huge contracts with big corporations, consulting contracts. And she asked somebody, a C-suite person at like a Fortune 500 company, how much is too much follow-up? And that person basically said there is no such thing as too much follow-up. Like, you can follow up for a long time. And some places you might have to follow up for a very long time before you get a response. And that's okay. Nobody's going to get upset with you for continuing to follow up unless you're harassing them. You know, I mean, if you're calling 12 times a day, that's probably excessive. The flip side of that is you have limited time and you have limited energy. So you have to decide how much effort you can spend on one potential contract. So if it has the potential to bring in $10,000 a month, then you're going to spend more energy on that than one that's going to bring in $100 a month, right? So consider that as well. I can say with senior living facilities that for the initial cold outreach, I probably follow up a couple times. Then if I don't hear from them at all, I might call and make sure I have the right contact information. After a meeting, if we've had a meeting and they've expressed interest, then I'll keep following up until they say no. And I'll leave them openings to say no. And, you know, if I send 3 emails and call another time and they haven't responded, I'll send them a final email and say, you know, I haven't heard from you, so I'm going to assume that you don't want our services right now. I'll put you on the list to follow up in a few months. So does that help? Does that help answer your question? I don't have a magic formula, but you have to find a balance between how much energy you have to give versus knowing that sometimes the longer you follow up, the more likely you are to get those contracts. Okay. All right. And then from JC, I don't know if it's too late. Okay. It's not too late to ask a question. I'd love to find out what you recommend as effective action steps in developing new relationships and converting leads. That's a big question. There are lots of effective action steps. Some things that maybe you can narrow down your question a little bit, JC. There's a lot of different things you can do in terms of, a lot of it depends on where you are in the relationship too. So if you've had a meeting with them and you're kind of in a holding pattern, then it's good to send them emails with like articles in the paper or YouTube videos or blog posts that you write, that kind of thing, just kind of to keep in touch. And so when the timing is better, that they'll be able to say yes to what you're offering. That's good to do with networking contacts as well. And here I've got somebody making mute audio there. See if that helps. Okay, I'm gonna, whoop, I just drew something. I'll share. Okay, here we are. Mute all. There we go. Okay. So let's see. You send follow-up emails, try to schedule phone calls, offer presentations, trying to get some responses back from potential leads. Some don't get back to me for months or even years. That's kind of just par for the course. I mean, some people just aren't going to get back to you. And if you can imagine what's happening on their end, or even find out what's happening on their end, that might help you feel better about that. You're not going to get 100% conversion rate with cold outreach. You're just not. Some places they have a lot of turmoil with staff turning over. Some places, you know, there might be a merger in the works, or maybe they just got acquired, or they just merged with somebody else, or maybe they're getting ready to make a new investment in another building or another unit or renovation. I mean, there could be so many things going on that you just don't know. And it's frustrating as somebody who's trying to sell a really valuable service when people don't do you the courtesy of responding to you. That's just business. I mean, at some point, it's just business. So then you have to find other prospects, right? So you find those prospects that you really want to work with. You try to get in touch with them. You follow up as much as you can. If they're a really amazing company that you want to work with, then you put more effort into following up. But at some point, you have to let them go and pick up a different prospect instead. Let's see. It took me 8 years to land a contract in Jackson with a place I called on and off for 8 of those years. Now I've been working with them for 4 years. I love them and they love us. Yeah, that's really cool. And I have some stories like that too with organizations. I had one hospice that I met, let's see, I'd gotten a lead for them that they wanted a music therapy program. I emailed them monthly for 18 months, I think, until they were ready to start. And then when they were ready to start music therapy, I mean, I was billing them $2,000 a month within a month, you know, and then we had that contract for 7 years, I think. So it happens, right? So just keep following up with the ones that are really important, and then other ones you can let go, and that's okay. How do you know how much to charge? Oh, Heather. That's a big can of worms. That's a big can of worms. So here's the short version. Find out what other music therapists in your area are charging. Find out what similar professions are charging. You can use the AMTA member survey results. They're not the most accurate, but they can offer some sort of a starting point. If you're in elder care or hospice, I have an elder care pricing benchmark report that I put out in 2017, did a survey of music therapists, and so that one is fairly accurate. I think the URL for that is, I'm going to check real quick. soundscapingsource.com/2017 benchmark. And so you can get that one if you're in elder care, and that has a lot about how to set your price and strategy around that. But yeah, big question. And if you join Rock That Contract, this is something that we can talk about for a long time, those coaching calls, than we have before, because there's a lot of strategy behind it. Oh, Emily says, feel free to share the magic formula when you figure it out, JC. Yeah, when we figure the magic formula out, we will, and the same thing's going to happen when Medicare starts paying for music therapy. I'm going to stand on the tallest building in my city and just shout, and you're all going to hear me, okay? Okay. Yeah, JC, you said, I've been at it for 9 years, so I feel like I should accept that things take a long time, but I still keep hoping for a magic formula. Yeah, it's true. Me too. I'm right there with you. Okay. All right, so we're coming up to the end of the hour. If you have any last minute questions that you want to type in to chat, go ahead. Well, I'm going to go ahead and draw our winner here. So I've got all your names, all the people who completed the challenge. Your names are on little pieces of paper in this plastic box here. We had 9 people who completed the challenge before this call started. So congratulations. You have a 1 in 9 chance of winning. All right, so here we go. I'm going to pick this one right here. Oh, yay, Allison. You see that? Allison, you're the winner. So I'm not, and you are on here. So yay, congratulations to you. Woo! So send me a message on Facebook and I'll make sure to get you set up in the program. So you got the free spot. Okay, so I have another 15 minutes or so to finish up any last questions. And I saw, you're welcome, Allison. I saw from Akila, am I saying that right, Akila? I hope I'm saying that right. How long did it take you when you first started to get your first contract? Did you start off part-time somewhere else and the other time on your business, or did you focus solely on your MT business? Okay, here's my story. I worked as a mental health tech in inpatient psych before my internship. So when I came back, I went back to that job second shift. So I was working evenings as a mental health tech full-time and building my business during the day. And then I gradually was able to decrease my hours there until I was at PRN status by the time I moved from and then when I moved to Kansas City, I just built my business back. So that worked out really well for me. I think that can work well for a lot of people. You just have to, if your ultimate goal is to have a music therapy business, you need to make sure you have a job that will allow you to build your business. So part-time work is good. Work in the evening or weekends can be really good. I've had other people come through Rock That Contract that have taught lessons, that have done babysitting, that have worked part-time jobs in retail, that have, worked part-time jobs as in activities or, in group homes, places like that. So, there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to know what your goals are and then figure out how to structure things so that you have the time you need to build your business. But we all need that financial stability. And I hung on to my job with a psych hospital for longer than I needed to, just to keep the insurance. Yeah, Akila said she started teaching private lessons. Yeah, cool. Okay. Any other questions? Did I miss anybody else? You're welcome. All right. Well, thank you all for being here for this webinar today. And thank you for you who are watching the recording also. For those of you who are on live, I would love to hear you type, or for you to type in the chat box, what was the big takeaway that you got from this webinar? What is the best thing that you learned that's going to help you as you move your business forward? Okay, so put that in the chat box. And then just a reminder to everyone that Rock That Contract, the doors are open now through next Thursday. Limited number of spots for this group coaching program. So, and then there's a fast action bonus that expires on Sunday night. So you're going to want to check out the program soon and make your decision as soon as you can. Do get in touch with me if there's anything that, any questions that you have about the program. I'll talk with you about that and we'll figure out if it's the right thing for you or not. Okay. RockThatContract.com is the website. And otherwise, I will see you all again on another call or another video. All right. Thank you for being here, everybody.